It's spring 1942. The Japanese control most of the Pacific. Now, they hope to lure the remaining American aircraft carriers into a decisive battle. Their strategy? Strike fast, strike hard, and force the Americans into a peace treaty. In recent months, the Japanese have made it clear that naval warfare has changed. Navies must rely on air power, not just battleships. Admiral Isaruko Yamamoto, commander of the powerful Japanese fleet, has spent time in the United States. He fears America's war machine. Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of American naval forces in the Pacific, is expecting the big Japanese offensive, but he doesn't know when or where it will occur. He looks to the Navy's codebreakers for help. Stationed at Pearl Harbor, Commander Joseph Rochefort's unit has broken part of the Japanese naval code, but only part of it. Intercepted Japanese dispatches reveal that the attack site might be AF. Rochefort guesses AF refers to an airfield on a small but strategically located island northwest of Hawaii, Midway. For Nimitz, there can be no guessing. If he is to meet the Japanese at Midway, he must move his force from Hawaii and a battle-worn force from the Coral Sea, leaving Australia unprotected. Rochefort's team devises a trick to determine if Midway is the target. Secretly, they instruct Midway to send out a radio message for the Japanese to intercept. If the Japanese intercept the message and include AF in their own communication, Rochefort's guess about Midway will be confirmed. The Japanese relay the message. Sure enough, AF appears. Nimitz commits his carriers to Midway. But in late May, the Americans have only 3 carriers available, and one of them, the Yorktown, has been severely damaged in the Battle of the Coral Sea. The estimate for repairs is 3 months. Nimitz tells workers they have 3 days. 1,400 men labor around the clock. The Yorktown sets to sea on time, with hundreds of repairmen still on board. The rest of the fleet is already steaming towards Midway. Meanwhile, parts of Yamamoto's powerful fleet head toward the rendezvous point, confident in their plan to defeat the Americans. Early morning, June 3rd, American reconnaissance planes from Midway fan out, looking for the vanguard of Yamamoto's fleet. One by one, the planes turn back to Midway. They report nothing. Maybe Rochefort's codebreakers were wrong. Maybe the messages were fake. One reconnaissance plane makes a last turn over the vast ocean 700 miles out from Midway. The pilot turns to his co-pilot. Do you see what I see? The enemy is sighted. The Japanese still think that the bulk of the American fleet, with its carrier-based bombers, is over 1,000 miles away in Hawaii. But thanks to the Navy's codebreakers, the combined American force is already nearby. June 4th, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo leads the Japanese strike force. Expecting little resistance, his pilots attack Midway's airfield. U.S. planes from Midway fight back, but do little damage. Unknown to Nagumo, however, Admiral Frank Fletcher's task force with the Yorktown and Admiral Raymond Spruance's force with the carriers Enterprise and Hornet are ready. Still confident of victory, Nagumo orders his pilots back to refuel and rearm for a follow-up strike on Midway. But minutes later, he receives disturbing information. An American carrier is in the area. Nagumo makes a critical decision. He decides to wait for the entire Midway strike force to return. They will then rearm with torpedoes and bombs designed for attacking warships instead of airfields. Planes, fuel, and munitions are all exposed on deck. For Nagumo, the timing couldn't be worse. Spruance has already sent out his entire strike force. Fletcher's planes are close behind. Nagumo is caught off guard. Three of Nagumo's carriers are sinking. His own carrier, the Akagi, takes a direct hit. An hour before, he thought victory was assured. Now, he is forced to abandon ship. Planes from the sole surviving carrier, Hiryu, strike back, hitting the Yorktown. But in a second American attack, the Hiryu is fatally damaged. Admiral Yamamoto has lost 4 carriers and 3,500 men, among them some of Japan's best pilots. For the Japanese, Midway is disastrous, a loss of men, materiel, and illusions of invincibility. For the Americans, despite their losses, Midway brings new confidence. And, just as Yamamoto feared, time for America to recover its naval might. Midway marks the turning point of the war in the Pacific.